Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, this video comes at the request of actually several of you have been asking about this, and I've done videos like this in the past. And I know some of you are thinking that, well, with all that's going on, isn't it a little late to be talking about the stuff that you need to be, stocking up on and the things you need to be acquiring? Well, I don't think so, because there is still time to do that. I mean, you can still go to the store right now and buy things. I know money's a little tighter. Prices have gone up for certain, but we can all still, stock up at least here and there, and some of us more than others. So regardless of whether you just woke up yesterday and realized, oh my goodness, the world's coming to an end, I need to get busy, or you've been doing this for a decade or more, there's always a few tips along the way that we can share, and if nothing else, just the encouragement of getting out and do stuff. So I have a few items on the table. These are just examples, it's just to give you an example, and we're going to talk about that and what you should be doing right now, what you can be doing to get yourselves prepared. Typically I say just buy extra of what you buy in a normal grocery shopping time. If you buy X amount of cans of green beans for that month, buy more and put them back. But honestly, with the way things are going right now, you need to up your game, and you need to up it considerably. You need to be, putting back as much as you can. If you need to make sacrifices in your life, I think that would be appropriate. Meaning, if you have a TV service that, probably could do without, or a certain bill, or a certain something, some type of service that you're getting, you could cut that off and take that money and put it towards preparations. I think that that's appropriate. I'm not saying go out and put a second mortgage on your house and go into deep debt over things like this, but I would certainly up your game in what you're doing. At a minimum, you want 90 days of food. It's really not that hard to come up with 90 days of food, but that's really at a minimum. I recommend 2 years of food put back, and all that 2 years is a buffer. So that if things really collapse and fall apart, and it doesn't look like it's going back to normal anytime soon, that 2 years is enough to give you a chance to kind of find some normalcy, to get your seeds in the ground, to get your production of food, because that's the end goal. The end goal isn't to live off of stuff you have stored away. The end goal is to be able to be self-sufficient and to live off of the foods and the products that you create and grow on your own. And so that 2 years is enough time, usually, to get yourself to that point. Because it's a lot harder than you think to grow and to raise enough food to really, truly survive, to preserve it, put it back. So that's what that 2 years is for. Now, you can do it different ways. Some people measure it by pounds. I do calories. I figure out how many calories a day that my family needs to eat. And then when we purchase foods that go into the preps, I figure it by calories. We try to have a variety. That's key, to have a variety and to buy the foods that you eat and that you like most, because you don't want to be stuck eating things you can't stand for the next 2 years. It's just not going to be fun. So try to stick with that. Learn expiration dates, which most of these foods don't have. They have sell-by dates, which means they're the freshest if it's sold by this date. That doesn't mean if you eat it the next day it's no good. It just means it may not be quite as fresh as when it was first produced. There are several items that we have eaten that have been, a few years, and I'm sure many of you have also, a few years past the sell-by date, and still fine. So don't think that just because it's the next day after, you got to throw it in the trash. They can last a long time. And like I said, stick with foods that you like, foods that have a long shelf life. Pretty much, if your foods have at least a 1 year shelf life, if the sell by date is at least for 1 year, then it's pretty good odds that it's going to last at least 2 years on your shelf in a fairly climate controlled situation. You don't want it getting really hot and really cold. Where if it's out in the shed in the summertime, it's 150 degrees in the thing, and then in the wintertime, it's 15 degrees. That's not good. You want it fairly climate controlled. And also, you can go a long way with your money and learn how to use them and do really good with your dry goods, your dry grains, pastas, those type of staples. They last an extremely long time, some of them 40 years or more if they're properly stored, and they're cheap compared to other foods, and you can stock up pretty quickly with a lot of food for not a lot of money when you're looking at your dry grains. And we're talking like, here's rice. We typically keep our dry goods like this sealed in Mylar, and they set them in 5-gallon buckets, and that's our long term. We usually have 1 bucket of each that's open, and that's what we're actively using out of. And then a lot of times, as you see here with these jars, my wife will keep some on the shelf. So here's rice, here's oatmeal, it's old-fashioned oats. Here's some white wheat. We almost always, not always, but almost always, grind our own wheat into flour and bake as much of our own breads as we can. At least my wife does. She's the bread person, not myself. And so we go through actually quite a bit of wheat, and we keep a lot of wheat on hand. I know wheat's being talked about right now, and wheat is going up in price. I recently checked, and it's gone up quite a bit. But it's still, considering what you get, definitely within the realm of being affordable to a certain extent. Flour, you can buy flour. You need to store it properly to make it last much longer than a year, because it starts to get a little rancid. But it will last longer if you store it properly, like in a freezer. You can also dry can it in a mason jar, that kind of stuff. Also pastas. We sometimes buy them in the store in the little individual boxes if they're on sale, but we also like to buy pastas in bulk when we can find it. And macaroni pasta, all pasta is the same. Pasta's pasta, it's just different shapes. So we have a variety, but we have a lot of the macaroni. Other items that you can get, if you gotta have something to, especially for us coffee drinkers, this is instant coffee. It lasts forever. So we do have some of that, but I tell you, I'm not a fan of instant coffee. So in fact, I've learned to like kind of my own coffee. So what we do is we purchase green unroasted coffee beans, and this is an example of how we get them. And we keep 100 or so pounds of this on hand, and I roast it myself. I just roast it in a black cast iron skillet, and I and many others think that it's way better than anything you buy in the store because it's fresh. So there's an alternative for that. Other dry things is like, lentils and beans. Those are obviously, everybody knows about that. So you want to have that kind of stuff on hand. Sugars, we typically buy sugar in 50-pound bags and for long-term storage, but we also buy other, smaller amounts of sugar. So don't forget your sugars, your honeys. Honey will last pretty much indefinitely, especially if you store it properly. So stocking up on your honey is important too. Other things, your spices. Don't forget your spices, seasonings, salts. Salt will last forever, and it's not that expensive. We don't buy iodized salt. We typically buy sea salt, and you can also purchase salt at farm stores. If you don't feel comfortable eating that salt, that's fine. That's up to you. But we have purchased certain brands that are sold in farm stores. I have found, while they're coarser, they're in my opinion just as clean. Some brands aren't. You kind of have to shop around. But the ones that are a little bit more at the farm store, you can buy a 25-pound bag of salt, good pink salt, for $10, $12, and it'll store a long time if you store it properly. Other things, oils, don't forget your oils. Your coconut oil is going to have the longest shelf life, so we stock up and get a couple of these, and it's gonna last the longest, and we do use them, and that's the key. All this stuff, you need to use it. Don't just buy it and set it on the shelf and never touch it. You buy it, and as you're putting it on the shelf, you're using out of it and you're replacing it back. You know, we pretty much do our grocery shopping out of our pantry, out of our prepping pantry. And then when we go grocery shopping, it's to restock our pantry. So that's that way and make sure you're rotating your foods so that you're always using the oldest and the freshest goes in the back. Other oils you can get, olive oils, avocado oils, you know, 6 months to a year is typically the shelf life on that kind of stuff, to give you a heads up. Obviously there's canned foods, and everyone talks about canned foods and they're good. Depending on the canned food, it can last anywhere from 3, 5 to 10 years. Your soups that are already cooked and ready to eat are great because you can just eat them right out of the can, even if they're not heated, but they're very easy to heat, and that's a quick and easy meal to have. But certainly other soups and other canned foods, you know, corn, green beans, peas, that kind of stuff, it's cheap and you can stock up pretty easy on it. Don't forget your proteins, okay? You're eating starches, maybe you're getting some vegetable nutrients and stuff like that, but you need protein. And so a couple of good proteins: peanut butter. We stock up on peanut butter. And then another one that's long term is stuff like tuna. Tuna has a very long shelf life for canned food. It's good for you, and you know, it's a good protein. It's got some good oils in it and stuff like that. Fruits, obviously, your canned fruits is one way. Applesauce. Applesauce actually is pretty dense in the nutrition that a fruit, you know, that an apple would have. It takes a lot of apples to make a thing of applesauce like this, and it has typically applesauce has a sell-by date of 1 year. We've easily eaten applesauce sealed like this that's well over 2 years old and did totally fine with it. These are some basic foods that you can stock up on. Of course, there's more. There's condiments. There's all kinds of things. You know, dry milk and other things to help with your baking. You know, if you're going to be using whole wheat and grinding it down to bake with, you're going to need a few other things like your baking powders and baking sodas and things like that. So you want to have that. Yeast, we keep a lot of yeast in our freezer, but we also know how to make our own yeast. You can grow your own yeast from the wild even, and so we do that sometimes also, and do it occasionally just to kind of keep it refreshed in our memory how to do that. These are little tips and tricks that you can do. Now, the other type of emergency foods that you can stock up on are freeze-dried foods. This is my Patriot Supply. You've heard me talk about it on the channel several times. And then the other one is dehydrated. This is dehydrated food that's sealed in a can. It will last 15 to 20 years, and you can get vegetables and stuff like this that are dehydrated. And there's this is dehydrated onions. There's a lot of onions that's in this can when you consider it's dehydrated down. So this can go a long way, and we have several cases of stuff like that. So this is the kind of the basics of food, and I understand I'm missing a whole lot. I understand there's a lot that I'm not covering, but I hope that I'm giving you some ideas. Beyond food, and I mentioned in the last video, you need to have a good seed supply. Garden seeds, I'm telling you, like I said, this food is only intended to last you 9 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is. In that time period, you need to be really ramping up your food production. So make sure you have plenty of seeds. Get out there and start growing them now, and then take the seeds that you're buying, planting, and then harvesting and collect seeds out of that so that you have your own seeds. And that way you just keep adding and adding to your seed vault that you have at your home, because I'm telling you, that's one of the most important things that you can be stocking up on. But you have to use it, okay? You don't just stock up on seeds and never use them. It's not something you buy and forget. You buy them and you use them, and you get good at it, because gardening is really a skill. You don't just go out there and throw seeds in a hole and expect that you're going to have enough food to live off of. You need to perfect and hone that skill, so every year get out there and garden. And I'm telling you, this year's the year that we're all going to really feel it in the grocery store. We already are, so you need to be producing as much food as possible. Other things to stock up on, simple first aid. This is Band-Aids, just as an example. All kinds of first aid stuff, you know, tourniquets, over-the-counter medication. Almost 100% of our over-the-counter medication is imported in, usually from India and China. A lot of our antibiotics, we pretty much don't produce antibiotics here in the United States, and a lot of our prescription medications, anywhere between 60 and 80% of those, are produced overseas. So you need to be stocking up on all the medications that you can, because if things get bad, there's no guarantee that we'll have those. And it would take years for America to get back into the game of producing medications. The infrastructure doesn't exist anymore. And so it would take a long time for us to get back to where we're producing. Alright, so that's mostly your foods and your medicines and things like that. Other things to make sure you have plenty of is batteries. I just went to Harbor Freight not too long ago and picked up several of these things, these little bricks of AA and AAA and other various size batteries. Batteries nowadays, most of them will last on the shelf unused for at least 10 years. So buy you some good batteries, store them up, make sure you have enough for flashlights, things like that. Once you get away from that, you got to know what you're doing, right? You got to have the research, and everyone nowadays, you know, we're on our phones and we're looking things up. You know, if we want to figure out how to bandage something, or how to fix something, or how to repair or cook or whatever, we look it up on our phones. Well, what happens when you can't use that phone? What happens when the cyber attacks on the internet and it's crashed it? That's been happening a lot. Nothing's crashed yet, but there's certainly been reports of increased amount of attacks, and a lot of people think that's the next phase of everything that's going on. So you need to have, well, backups. You need to have real books, okay? Have a good book collection. This is a foraging book. This one I've been talking about on the channel, just general preparations, mini Ice Age, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. Here's one on herbal medicine, the Encyclopedia to Herbal Medicine. This one is one of my all-time favorites, Dare to Prepare. This is like what I consider this the ultimate prepper's Bible. From the Deos, a lot of you know who they are. They're kind of the godfathers of the modern prepping movement. And that book is so filled with stuff. There's tons of books like this. Backyard Homesteading kind of helps you get an idea of what you're doing. Another one, this is kind of the Homesteader's Bible. The Encyclopedia to Country Living. They've been producing this for a long time. They're all good. Any edition you can get is worth getting. If you can buy an older one that's a little cheaper, that's fine. It'll work. But I mean, it's a thick book, and you know, you could totally from scratch learn how to homestead just reading that book. I've learned an immense amount. And then with everything going on with Russia, stuff like this, guides to nuclear war and stuff would be helpful. Aside from that, you want to have your communications down. Here's some radios. These are both ham radios from Baofeng, different radios, different antenna setup. These things are cheap, okay? $30, $40, $50 for this kind of stuff, and you should get it and know how to use it. It doesn't hurt to get your license also, but at least have the equipment. And then last but not least that I want to bring to your attention is, yes, things that go boom. This kind of stuff, the prices have come down, and most especially these, the prices have come down quite a bit. Not normal, but certainly come down, and I would be stocking up on that every chance you get, because you can't have too much of it, and I would guess to say that at some point the supply is going to start drying up real soon. Alright folks, I hope this helps you to get out there and get prepared. Get your house in order, folks. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching. Catch you in the next video.